Hi, Reddit. I don't even know how to start this. My mind is still trying to piece together everything that's happened, and I feel like I'm living in a dream, or maybe a nightmare. If you're reading this, buckle up because my story is not for the faint-hearted. I just need to get this off my chest, even if it feels like screaming into the void. It all started about 7 years ago, or maybe even before that, but I was too blind to see it. Back then, I was happily married to Amanda, or so I thought. We had been together for almost a decade. Amanda was everything I had ever wanted in a partner. Smart, funny, and beautiful in a way that made you feel lucky just to be in her presence. She had this infectious energy that could light up a room, and I was the guy who got to call her my wife. We had a daughter, Lily, or at least, I thought she was my daughter. From the moment I held her in my arms at the hospital, I was smitten. She had Amanda's green eyes and this little button nose that I jokingly claimed came from me. I was so proud to be her dad. I worked long hours at a marketing firm to make sure she had everything she could ever need. Every laugh, every "Daddy, I love you," felt like it validated all the hard work I put in. But as the years went on, there were cracks in the foundation I refused to see. Amanda had started acting off. At first, I chalked it up to stress. She had gone back to work after Lily turned 3 and was juggling her career, motherhood, and life in general. I didn't push too hard because I didn't want to be the husband who didn't support his wife's independence. But then came the late nights at the office, the unexplained weekend trips with her friends, the phone she always kept face down on the table. I'd catch her smiling at texts, and when I asked about it, she'd brush it off as work stuff. "Don't be paranoid," she'd say with that disarming smile of hers. "You know I'd never hurt you." And like the fool I was, I believed her. Then, everything unraveled in the cruelest way possible. It was a Tuesday, I remember, because Amanda was supposed to pick Lily up from school, but she got stuck at work again. I left early to get her, and when we got home, there was a letter in the mail. It was from some law office, addressed to Amanda. Now, I know what you're thinking. You shouldn't open someone else's mail. But something about it felt wrong. My gut told me to look inside. I wish I hadn't. The letter was about a paternity test. My name wasn't on it. It was someone else's. A man named Richard. My hands started shaking as I read the words, "Confirmed biological father." I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. My daughter, my sweet Lily, wasn't mine. She was his. I don't remember much after that. I think I just sat there, staring at the paper, trying to breathe. When Amanda finally got home, I confronted her. She didn't deny it. In fact, she seemed almost relieved, like some massive weight had been lifted off her shoulders. "I was going to tell you," she said, her voice calm in a way that made my blood boil. "It's not like it changes anything. You're still her father." "Not biologically," I snapped. "You lied to me for years. How could you do this?" Her response? "Because I didn't think you'd stay if you knew the truth." I couldn't believe the audacity. She was saying these things as if it was supposed to make me feel better. Like I should be grateful she allowed me to live this lie. I packed a bag that night and left. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stay. I couldn't look at Amanda, and I couldn't bear to see Lily, knowing the truth. It wasn't her fault, but my heart couldn't take it. That was the night I disappeared. I cut all ties, deleted my social media, changed my number, and moved to another state. I told myself it was for the best. Amanda could have her life with Richard or whoever she wanted, and I'd start over. It wasn't easy, but over time, I built a new life. A quiet one. No relationships, no attachments, just me and my solitude. But life has a funny way of bringing things full circle. 7 years later, out of nowhere, she found me. And that's where this story really begins. 7 years. That's how long I managed to stay hidden. 7 years of silence, solitude, and pretending my past life didn't exist. It wasn't easy, but I made it work. I moved to a small town in Colorado, changed my name to James, and picked up odd jobs to keep a low profile. No one knew who I really was, and I liked it that way. It gave me the space I needed to breathe, to figure out who I was without Amanda and Lily. I told myself I was happy, or at least content. But deep down, I knew I was just running, hiding from the pain and the betrayal. I convinced myself that as long as I stayed away, they'd be better off without me, and I could avoid the mess I left behind. That illusion shattered one sunny afternoon in late spring. I was working at a hardware store, organizing paint cans, when I saw her. Amanda. My heart stopped. For a second, I thought I was imagining it. She was standing at the end of the aisle, her hair shorter than I remembered, but unmistakably her. She looked older, more tired, but there was no mistaking the look in her eyes. She was here for me. James, she said softly, her voice trembling. Hearing her say the name I'd been using all these years was surreal. My mind screamed at me to run, but my feet wouldn't move. All I could do was stare at her, frozen in place. How did you find me? I managed to choke out. She took a step closer, clutching her purse like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. It wasn't easy, she admitted, but I had to. We had to. We? My stomach churned as I realized what she meant. Sure enough, a moment later, Lily appeared at the end of the aisle. She was taller now, almost a young woman. Her green eyes, Amanda's eyes, locked onto mine, and she smiled hesitantly. "Dad," she whispered. I felt like the wind had been knocked out of me. Hearing her call me that, after everything, was too much. I turned away, pretending to busy myself with the paint cans. "I'm not your dad," I muttered, my voice barely audible. "Don't say that," Amanda pleaded. "She's still your daughter, no matter what." "Don't," I snapped, finally finding the strength to face her. "Don't you dare come here and act like nothing happened. You lied to me for years, Amanda. Years. You don't get to waltz back into my life and act like you're the victim." She flinched at my words but didn't back down. "I know I hurt you," she said. "I know I made mistakes. But you disappeared, and we had no idea if you were alive or dead. Do you know how hard it was to explain that to Lily? You mean the daughter you had with another man?" I shot back, my voice dripping with bitterness. "No, Amanda, I don't know how hard that was for you. But I know how hard it was for me to find out the truth, to have my entire life ripped out from under me." Lily stepped forward then, her eyes brimming with tears. "I didn't know," she said, her voice trembling. "I didn't know you weren't my real dad until Mom told me a few years ago. But I don't care. You're still my dad. You raised me, and I love you." Her words hit me like a freight train. I wanted to believe her, to let myself feel the love she was offering. But the pain was still too fresh, even after all these years. "I can't do this," I said, shaking my head. "I've moved on. You should too." Amanda reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope, holding it out to me. "Please, just read this," she said. "It's from Lily. That's all we came here for." I didn't want to take it, but the look in Lily's eyes made it impossible to refuse. I grabbed the envelope, shoved it into my pocket, and walked away without another word. That night, I sat alone in my tiny apartment, staring at the envelope on the table. I couldn't bring myself to open it. What could she possibly say that would make any of this better? But as the hours dragged on, curiosity got the better of me. I tore it open, and inside was a handwritten letter from Lily. "Dear Dad, I know I'm not your real daughter, but you've always been my dad in every way that matters. I don't care about biology. You were there for me when I needed you, and I miss you so much. Please, if you can find it in your heart to forgive Mom, can we just talk? I just want my dad back. Love, Lily." By the time I finished reading, tears were streaming down my face. I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to stay hidden, to protect myself from the pain. But another part of me, the part that still loved Lily, wanted to believe there was a way to fix this. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. And as the sun rose, I made a decision that would change everything. I barely slept that night. Lily's letter replayed in my mind over and over again, her words carving deep into the walls I had spent years building around myself. "You've always been my dad in every way that matters." How do you argue with that? How do you stay angry at someone who just wants their father back, even if the foundation of that relationship was built on a lie? By morning, I had made up my mind. I needed to see her again. Not Amanda, just Lily. But the thought of facing Amanda, of reopening all those wounds, made my stomach turn. Still, I couldn't ignore the small voice inside me that whispered, "You owe it to her. She's just a kid." I spent hours rehearsing what I would say, pacing back and forth in my tiny apartment. When I finally worked up the courage, I called the number Amanda had scribbled on the back of the envelope. It rang twice before her voice answered. "Hello?" she said, her tone cautious, like she wasn't sure if I'd ever actually call. "It's me," I said flatly. "I want to see Lily. Just Lily." There was a pause, and for a moment, I thought she might argue. But instead, she said, "Of course. She'd love that." "When?" I didn't want to give her time to plan some big reunion, so I said, "Today. I'll meet her at the park by the old library. 2 p.m. "I'll let her know," Amanda replied, her voice tinged with relief. "Thank you." I hung up before she could say anything else. I didn't want to hear her apologies or explanations. This wasn't about her. It was about Lily. I arrived at the park early, sitting on a weathered bench near the duck pond. The place hadn't changed much since I'd left. It was the same park where I used to bring Lily when she was a toddler. I could still picture her running around, laughing as she tried to catch butterflies. The memories hit me like a punch to the gut, and for a moment, I wondered if I had made a mistake by coming here. But then I saw her. Lily was walking toward me, clutching a book to her chest. She looked so much older than I remembered, but at the same time, she was still the little girl I used to read bedtime stories to. Her face lit up when she saw me, and before I could say anything, she threw her arms around me. "Dad!" she cried, her voice breaking. "I missed you so much." I froze, unsure of what to do. Part of me wanted to pull away, to remind her that I wasn't really her dad. But another part, the part that still loved her, wrapped my arms around her and held on tight. "I missed you too," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. We sat on the bench together, talking about everything and nothing. She told me about school, her favorite books, and how she'd started playing soccer. I listened, nodding and smiling, but my mind kept drifting to the questions I was too afraid to ask. Did she hate me for leaving? Did she know the full truth about what Amanda had done? Finally, I couldn't hold it in any longer. "Lily," I said, my voice shaking. "Why now? Why come find me after all this time?" She looked down at her hands, fidgeting with the corner of her book. "Because I needed you," she said simply. "Mom told me you left because of everything that happened. But you're still my dad, and I didn't want to lose you forever." Her honesty was like a knife to the heart. I wanted to tell her everything, to explain why I had left and how much it had hurt me to walk away. But how do you tell a child that the life you shared was built on lies? How do you admit that you ran away because you were too broken to stay? Instead, I said, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for leaving." Lily shook her head. "It's okay. I just want us to start over. Can we do that?" I wanted to say yes, to promise her that everything would be okay. But there was still so much I didn't know. Where did Amanda fit into all of this? What did she want from me? And most importantly, where was Richard, the man who was supposed to be Lily's biological father? Before I could answer, I heard a voice behind me. "James." I turned around to see Amanda standing a few feet away, her expression unreadable. She was holding a folder in her hands, and I could tell by the way she clutched it that whatever was inside wasn't going to be good. "What are you doing here?" I demanded, my tone sharper than I intended. "I didn't mean to interrupt," she said quickly, "but there's something you need to know. It's about Richard." My blood ran cold at the mention of his name. "What about him?" She hesitated, her eyes darting between me and Lily. "He's dead. He died a year ago." The words hit me like a freight train. For years, I had imagined confronting Richard, demanding answers for what he had done to my family. But now that chance was gone, and with it, the hope of ever getting closure. Amanda must have seen the turmoil on my face because she added, "There's more. He left something for you, for Lily." She held out the folder, and I stared at it like it was a ticking time bomb. I didn't want to take it, but I knew I had no choice. My hands trembled as I opened it, revealing a stack of documents and a handwritten letter addressed to me. "James, I know I'll never get the chance to say this to your face, so I'm writing it down instead. What Amanda and I did was unforgivable, and I'll carry that guilt to my grave. But there's something you need to know. Lily isn't just Amanda's daughter. She's yours. I lied about the paternity test because I was scared, and I didn't want to lose her. Please, if you can find it in your heart, be the father she deserves. Richard, the letter slipped from my hands as the world spun around me. Lily was mine. She had always been mine, and I had abandoned her. I looked at Amanda, my voice barely above a whisper. Is this true? She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I wanted to tell you, but I didn't know how. I didn't think you'd believe me. I turned to Lily, who was staring at me with wide eyes, her face a mixture of confusion and hope. For the first time in years, I felt the weight of my mistakes crashing down on me. I had run away from my own daughter, and now, I didn't know if I could ever make it right. I couldn't breathe. The letter felt like it was burning in my hands, the words searing themselves into my mind. She's yours. Lily was mine. She had always been mine. The weight of that realization hit me like a freight train, and for a moment, the world around me blurred. All the years I had spent running, hiding, convincing myself I wasn't needed, all felt like wasted time. My heart ached as I looked at her, my daughter. Lily's eyes flicked between me and Amanda, confusion etched across her face. What's going on? She asked softly, her voice trembling. What's in the letter? I froze, unsure of how to respond. How could I even begin to explain something so massive? Amanda stepped forward, reaching out as if to take the letter from me, but I pulled back instinctively. She deserves to know, I said sharply, my voice cutting through the tension. No more lies, Amanda. No more half-truths. If we're going to fix this, she needs to hear everything. Amanda looked away, her guilt evident. For the first time, I saw the cracks in the armor she had always worn so confidently. She wasn't the woman who had lied to me all those years ago. She was older, tired, and weighed down by the choices she had made. But sympathy was a luxury I couldn't afford, not now. Lily, I began, turning to face her fully. There's something I need to tell you. Something I should have known a long time ago. I paused, trying to find the right words, but nothing felt sufficient. That letter, it says that I'm your biological father. Her eyes widened, her mouth opening and closing as she tried to process what I had just said. What? But, Mom always said, she lied. I interrupted, my voice soft but firm. She lied to me, and she lied to you. All these years, I thought you weren't mine. That's why I left. Lily's face crumpled, tears streaming down her cheeks. You left because of me? She whispered, her voice barely audible. Because you thought I wasn't your daughter? No, I said quickly, reaching out to take her hands. Not because of you. Never because of you. I left because I couldn't handle the lies, the betrayal, but I was wrong to leave you behind. I should have stayed. I should have fought for you. She looked at me, her tears falling freely now. So you're my dad? My real dad? I nodded, my throat tightening as I fought back tears of my own. Yes, Lily, I'm your dad. I've always been your dad. For a moment, the world seemed to stop. Lily threw her arms around me, clinging to me like her life depended on it. I held her tightly, my heart breaking and healing all at once. I had spent so many years running from the pain, but in that moment, I realized that running had only made it worse. Amanda stood a few feet away, watching us with tears in her eyes. For a brief second, our gazes met, and I saw something I hadn't seen in years, regret. But regret wasn't enough. Not for what she had done. After what felt like an eternity, Lily pulled back, wiping her eyes. So, what happens now? She asked, her voice filled with a mixture of hope and fear. Before I could answer, Amanda stepped forward. Lily, she began, her voice shaking. There's more you need to know. I tensed, my jaw clenching. Amanda, don't. No, she said firmly, meeting my gaze. It's time. She deserves the truth. Lily looked between us, her confusion deepening. What truth? What else is there? Amanda took a deep breath, her hands trembling. Richard, he wasn't the man you thought he was. He wasn't just my affair partner. He did things. To me. To us. My stomach twisted as her words sank in. What are you talking about? I demanded. What things? Amanda hesitated, her eyes filling with tears. He blackmailed me, James. He threatened to ruin everything if I didn't go along with his lies. The paternity test, the deception, it was all him. I didn't know how to get out. I didn't know how to fix it. I stared at her, my mind reeling. Could this be true? Could Richard have been the puppet master behind everything that had happened? And if so, why had Amanda stayed silent for so long? Lily's voice broke through the chaos. You're saying he lied? About me? About everything? Amanda nodded, her tears spilling over. Yes, and I'm so sorry, Lily. I thought I was protecting you, but I only made things worse. The anger I had buried for years began to bubble to the surface. Why didn't you tell me this sooner? I demanded. Why wait until now? Because I was scared. Amanda cried, her voice cracking. Scared of what he might do. Scared of losing you. Scared of everything falling apart. Well, congratulations, I said bitterly. You succeeded in destroying everything anyway. Amanda flinched, but she didn't argue. She knew I was right. Lily stood between us, her face a mixture of heartbreak and anger. I don't care about him, she said, her voice firm. I care about us. About fixing this. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. For so long, I had let my anger and pain dictate my actions, but Lily deserved better. She deserved a father who would fight for her, not run away. I'll try, I said finally, my voice soft. I can't promise it'll be easy, but I'll try. Lily smiled through her tears, and for the first time in years, I felt a glimmer of hope. But as I looked at Amanda, I knew the road ahead wouldn't be simple. There were still so many unanswered questions, so much damage to repair. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Richard's story, something darker, something we hadn't uncovered yet. And I was right. The past wasn't done with us yet. I didn't sleep that night. My mind was a tangled mess of emotions. Anger, guilt, confusion, and an overwhelming sense of loss for all the years I had missed with Lily. As much as I wanted to focus on her, the shadow of Richard lingered in my thoughts like a storm cloud. Amanda's revelation about his manipulation had opened a new door, one I wasn't sure I wanted to step through. But deep down, I knew I had to. If I was going to rebuild my relationship with Lily, I needed to uncover the full truth. The next morning, I called Amanda. Hearing her voice made my stomach twist, but I pushed the feeling aside. This wasn't about her. It was about answers. I need to know everything, I said, skipping any pleasantries. If we're going to move forward, I need the full truth. No more half-truths, no more omissions. Tell me everything about Richard. There was a long pause before she finally responded. Okay, but it's not something we can do over the phone. Can you come by the house? The thought of stepping foot in the house we had once shared made my skin crawl, but I agreed. If this was the only way to get the answers I needed, then so be it. When I arrived at the house, it was like walking into a time capsule. Everything looked the same, but it felt different, cold, lifeless. Amanda met me at the door, her face pale and drawn. She led me to the kitchen, where a stack of papers and a small lockbox sat on the table. These are all the documents Richard used to blackmail me, she said, gesturing to the papers. Emails, fake contracts, even a forged version of the paternity test. He made sure I couldn't go to the police. He said if I did, he'd ruin me and you. I sifted through the documents, my anger growing with every page. Richard had orchestrated everything, from the lies about Lily's parentage to the constant manipulation of Amanda. It was a sickening level of control, and I couldn't understand why she hadn't come to me sooner. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, my voice low and tense. Why did you let him control you like this? Amanda looked down, her hands trembling. Because I thought I could handle it. I thought I could protect you and Lily by keeping quiet. But he was ruthless, James. He knew things about us, about our finances, even about your job. He threatened to destroy everything. As much as I hated to admit it, I could see the fear in her eyes. Richard hadn't just been an affair partner. He had been a predator, preying on Amanda's vulnerabilities and using them to his advantage. But there was still one thing I couldn't wrap my head around. What did he want? I asked, why go to all this trouble? Why lie about Lily and manipulate you for years? Amanda hesitated, her eyes filling with tears. Because he wanted control. Over me. Over Lily. Over you. He wanted to prove he could take everything you cared about and make it his. Her words sent a chill down my spine. Richard hadn't just been a liar. He had been a monster. And even though he was gone, his shadow still loomed over us. After leaving Amanda's house, I drove aimlessly, trying to process everything I had learned. The weight of the truth was suffocating, and I couldn't shake the feeling that there was still more to uncover. Richard may have been dead, but his lies had left scars that would take years to heal. That night, as I sat in my apartment staring at the stack of documents Amanda had given me, my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. The message was short, but it made my blood run cold. You're looking in the wrong places. Richard wasn't the only one keeping secrets. My heart pounded as I reread the message, my mind racing. Who had sent this? How did they know what I was doing? And what secrets were they talking about? Before I could respond, another message came through. Meet me at the diner on Main Street. Midnight. Come alone. I stared at the screen, torn between fear and curiosity. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to throw my phone across the room and pretend I hadn't seen it. But the other part, the part that needed answers, was already grabbing my jacket. The diner was almost empty when I arrived. The fluorescent lights buzzed softly, casting a pale glow over the worn booths and faded checkered floors. I scanned the room, searching for anyone who might be waiting for me. In the far corner, a man sat alone, his face partially hidden by a baseball cap. He looked up as I approached, his expression unreadable. Without a word, he gestured for me to sit. You must be James, he said, his voice low and gravelly. Who are you? I demanded, keeping my tone firm. And how do you know about Richard? The man smirked, leaning back in his seat. Let's just say I used to work with him. I know what he did to you, to your wife, and to your daughter. But Richard wasn't the only one pulling strings. What are you talking about? I asked, my frustration growing. What strings? He slid a folder across the table, his eyes narrowing. Richard had a partner, someone who helped him forge the paternity test, manipulate Amanda, and keep you in the dark. Someone you know very well? My hands trembled as I opened the folder. Inside were photos, emails, and documents, evidence that pointed to someone I never would have suspected. It was Amanda's sister, Laura. I stared at the folder, my pulse pounding in my ears. Laura? Amanda's sister? It didn't make sense. Laura had always been kind, supportive even. She was the one who helped us through rough patches, the one who babysat Lily when Amanda and I needed a break. She had been part of our lives for years. How could she possibly be involved in all this? This has to be a mistake, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. There's no way Laura had anything to do with this. The man across from me smirked, clearly unimpressed with my denial. People aren't always who you think they are, James. Richard was a master manipulator, but he wasn't working alone. Laura was in on it from the beginning. He tapped the folder with his finger. Everything you need to know is in there. Emails between her and Richard, bank transfers, even a few recordings. She wasn't just involved. She was the one who introduced him to Amanda. The room seemed to tilt, the floor falling out from under me. Why? I croaked, my voice cracking. Why would she do this? The man shrugged, his expression cold. Money, power, control, take your pick. She and Richard had their own arrangement. He got to manipulate Amanda, and she got a cut of whatever he squeezed out of her. From what I've gathered, she had her own grudge against you. Something about feeling overshadowed by your perfect life. My mind raced, trying to piece together the fragments of my shattered reality. Laura had always been close to Amanda, but I never suspected she harbored any resentment toward me. She had been at our wedding, at Lily's birthday parties, at every family gathering. How could someone so close to us hide something so vile? I flipped through the documents in the folder, my stomach churning with every page. There were screenshots of emails between Laura and Richard, discussing their plans to manipulate Amanda. Bank records showed large sums of money being transferred between their accounts. And then there were the recordings, clips of phone conversations where Laura coached Richard on how to keep Amanda in line. One recording stood out. Laura's voice came through the crackly audio, cold and calculating. Just remind her what's at stake. She doesn't have the guts to fight back. And if James gets suspicious, we'll deal with him too. I clenched my fists, my anger bubbling to the surface. I had been blind, so focused on Richard and Amanda's betrayal that I hadn't even considered the possibility of someone else pulling the strings. Laura had been in my house, sitting at my table, playing the role of supportive sister-in-law while she worked behind the scenes to destroy my family. The man watched me, his expression unreadable. You see now, don't you? Richard might be gone, but the damage he caused was a team effort. Laura's still out there, living her life like nothing happened. If you want justice, you'll have to confront her. Justice. The word felt hollow. What justice could there be for something like this? Confronting Laura wouldn't undo the years of pain and betrayal. It wouldn't bring back the time I had lost with Lily, but I knew I couldn't let her get away with it. She had to answer for what she had done. I closed the folder and stood up, my resolve hardening. Where is she? The man raised an eyebrow. You're not wasting any time, huh? I like that. She lives about an hour from here, in the city. Here's the address. He slid a piece of paper across the table, and I snatched it up without hesitation. As I turned to leave, he called out, One more thing, James. Be careful. Laura's not the type to go down without a fight. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. My mind was already racing ahead, planning my next move. The drive to Laura's apartment was a blur. My hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, my knuckles white. I replayed the recordings in my mind, her voice taunting me with every word. By the time I reached her building, my anger had reached a boiling point. I found her apartment on the 3rd floor and knocked on the door, my heart pounding. A moment later, Laura opened it, her face lighting up with surprise when she saw me. James. Wow, I wasn't expecting you, she said, her tone casual. What brings you here? I stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, my eyes locking onto hers. We need to talk. Her smile faltered, and she closed the door behind me. Okay, what's this about? I pulled the folder out of my bag and slammed it onto the table. This. Care to explain? She stared at the folder, her face draining of color. Where did you get that? That doesn't matter, I snapped. What matters is that I know the truth. I know what you did, Laura. All of it. Her hands trembled as she reached for the folder, but I grabbed it before she could touch it. Don't even try, I growled. You lied to me, to Amanda, to Lily. You manipulated all of us for years. Why, Laura? Why would you do this? She took a step back, her expression shifting from fear to defiance. You don't understand, she said, her voice rising. Do you have any idea how hard it was for me, watching you and Amanda play happy family while I struggled? You had everything, love, success, a beautiful daughter, and I had nothing. Richard gave me a way to level the playing field. By destroying my life? I shouted. By lying about my own daughter? You think I wanted it to go this far? She shot back, her voice breaking. I didn't. But Richard, he was ruthless. Once he had his hooks in me, I couldn't get out. He threatened me too, James. Save it, I said coldly. I'm done listening to excuses. You're just as guilty as he was. Her eyes filled with tears, but I felt no sympathy. This wasn't just about me. It was about Lily, the daughter I had abandoned because of Laura and Richard's lies. They had taken everything from me, and now it was time for them to face the consequences. I'm going to the police, I said, turning toward the door. You can explain yourself to them. James, wait, she cried, grabbing my arm. Please, don't do this. I'll do anything. Just don't ruin my life. I shook her off, my voice firm. You ruined mine, Laura. It's time you paid for it. As I walked out of her apartment, I felt a strange mix of emotions, anger, relief, and a flicker of hope. For the first time in years, I felt like I was taking control of my life again. But I knew this wasn't the end. The damage Laura and Richard had caused would take years to undo, and I wasn't sure if my relationship with Lily could ever fully heal. Still, I had to try. For her. For us. The drive home from Laura's apartment was eerily quiet, the kind of silence that feels deafening. My mind was racing with everything I just learned, but one thought rose above the rest. How do I fix this? Confronting Laura had felt satisfying in the moment, but it wasn't enough. Justice might be served if she faced legal consequences, but it wouldn't erase the years of damage she and Richard had caused. And it wouldn't heal the fractures in my relationship with Lily. I parked outside my apartment, the streetlights casting long shadows across the empty lot. As I climbed the stairs to my door, my phone buzzed in my pocket. For a split second, I thought it might be Laura, but when I pulled it out, I saw Lily's name on the screen. My heart ached at the sight of it. "Hey, Lily," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Hi, Dad," she replied softly. "I just wanted to check in. Mom told me you were going to talk to Aunt Laura. How did it go?" I hesitated, unsure of how much to tell her. She deserved the truth, but how much of it could she handle? "It went as expected," I said finally. I confronted her, and she admitted to everything. Lily was quiet for a moment. "So it's true? Aunt Laura was part of it? She worked with Richard?" "Yes," I said, my voice heavy with regret. "I'm so sorry, Lily. You didn't deserve any of this." "Neither did you," she said, her voice breaking. "I don't understand how someone could be so cruel. She was my aunt, Dad. I trusted her." "I know," I said, my throat tightening. "I trusted her too. But we can't change the past. All we can do is move forward." "How?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "How do we move forward after everything?" It was a question I didn't have an answer to, but I knew I had to try. "One step at a time," I said. "We start by being honest with each other. No more secrets, no more lies. Just us, trying to figure this out together." "Okay," she said softly. "I'd like that." We talked for a while longer, and for the first time in years, I felt a glimmer of hope. Lily was hurt, but she wasn't shutting me out. She wanted to rebuild our relationship, and I was determined not to let her down again. The next day, I met with a lawyer to discuss the evidence I had against Laura. The documents and recordings were damning, and the lawyer assured me that there was enough to press charges. But as I sat in the sterile office, staring at the neatly organized files, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the tip of the iceberg. Laura might have been complicit in Richard's schemes, but I couldn't ignore the fact that Amanda had played her own role in the lies. After leaving the lawyer's office, I drove to Amanda's house. The thought of seeing her again made my stomach churn, but I needed answers. I couldn't keep pretending that everything she did was the result of Richard or Laura's manipulation. She had made her own choices, and I needed to understand why. When I arrived, Amanda opened the door, her face pale and drawn. "James," she said quietly, "I wasn't expecting you." "We need to talk," I said, stepping inside. "About everything." She nodded, leading me to the living room. As we sat down, I noticed the faint tremor in her hands. She looked fragile, like the weight of her secrets was finally catching up to her. "I went to see Laura," I said, cutting straight to the point. "She admitted to everything. The lies, the manipulation, the forged paternity test. But I need to know, why did you let it happen? Why didn't you fight back?" Amanda's eyes filled with tears. "I was scared, James. You have to understand, Richard wasn't just manipulative. He was dangerous. He threatened me, threatened you, and I believed him. And Laura, she was supposed to be my sister. I thought I could trust her, but she turned on me too. Why didn't you come to me?" I demanded. "Why didn't you tell me the truth when it mattered?" She looked down, her voice barely above a whisper. "Because I didn't think you'd believe me. After everything I'd done, after the affair, I thought you'd hate me, and maybe I deserved it." Her words cut deep, but I couldn't deny the truth in them. I had been so angry, so consumed by my own pain, that I might not have believed her if she had come to me back then. But that didn't excuse her silence. "I'm not asking for your forgiveness," she said, her voice trembling. "I know I don't deserve it, but I want you to know that I never stopped loving you. And I never stopped loving Lily. I didn't know how to fix what I'd broken." I took a deep breath, trying to steady my emotions. "It's not about forgiveness, Amanda. It's about accountability. You made choices that hurt me, that hurt Lily, and now we're all paying the price. But if we're going to move forward, we have to stop making excuses. We have to face the truth." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I'll do whatever it takes," she said. "I just want Lily to be happy." "Then start by being honest with her," I said. "She needs to know the whole truth, from both of us." Amanda agreed, and we spent hours talking about how to approach the conversation with Lily. It wasn't going to be easy, but it was a step in the right direction. For the first time in years, I felt like we were making progress. Later that evening, as I sat alone in my apartment, my phone buzzed again. It was another text from the unknown number. "You're getting closer, but there's still more you don't know. Be careful who you trust." My heart sank as I stared at the message. Just when I thought I was piecing everything together, another mystery had surfaced. Who was sending these messages? And what were they trying to warn me about? As I sat there, staring at the screen, I couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come. The text haunted me. "Be careful who you trust." My first instinct was to ignore it, to chalk it up to someone trying to stir the pot. But deep down, I knew better. The sender had been right so far. Every warning, every breadcrumb they left had led me closer to the truth. And now, they were telling me there was more. Something I hadn't uncovered yet. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I pored over the documents from Laura, replayed the recordings, and analyzed every interaction I'd had with Amanda and Lily. What was I missing? What piece of the puzzle hadn't I put together? By morning, I was no closer to an answer. My phone buzzed again, and for a split second, I thought it was another message from the mysterious sender. But it was Amanda. "Can you come over?" she asked. "Lily wants to talk to us together." Her voice was tense, and I could hear the nervousness in her tone. It wasn't a request. It was a plea. Something in her voice told me that this wasn't just about Lily. It was about everything. "I'll be there," I said, my own voice tight with apprehension. When I arrived at Amanda's house, the tension was palpable. Lily was sitting on the couch, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Amanda stood nearby, pacing nervously. The air was thick with unspoken words, and I braced myself for whatever was coming. "Dad, Mom," Lily began, her voice trembling. "I need to know the truth. All of it. No more secrets." I exchanged a glance with Amanda. We had agreed to be honest with Lily, but now that the moment had arrived, I wasn't sure where to start. "Okay," I said, taking a deep breath. "What do you want to know?" She looked at me, her green eyes piercing. "Why did you leave?" "The real reason. Not the one Mom told me. Not the one I've been telling myself. The truth." I hesitated, my heart aching at the pain in her voice. "I left because I thought you weren't mine," I said finally. "Because your mom and Richard lied to me about your paternity. I felt betrayed, and I didn't know how to handle it." Lily's face crumpled, and tears filled her eyes. "You left because of a lie?" "Yes," I admitted, my own voice breaking. "And it was the biggest mistake of my life. I should have stayed. I should have fought for you." She turned to Amanda. "And you let him believe that? You let him think I wasn't his?" Amanda's face was pale, her eyes red-rimmed. "I didn't know how to fix it," she said, her voice trembling. "Richard manipulated me. He made me think I had no way out." "Stop blaming Richard," Lily snapped, her voice rising. "You made choices too, Mom. You could have told Dad the truth. You could have fought for us. But you didn't." Amanda broke down, tears streaming down her face. "You're right," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I failed you. I failed both of you, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life." Lily turned back to me, her expression a mixture of anger and sadness. "You both failed me," she said softly, "but I don't want to live in the past anymore. I just want us to move forward." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I had spent so much time dwelling on the betrayal, the lies, that I hadn't considered what Lily needed: closure, healing, a chance to rebuild what we had lost. "I want that too," I said, my voice steady. "I'll do whatever it takes, Lily. I promise." Later that evening, as I sat in my apartment, my phone buzzed again. Another text from the unknown number. "You're almost there. One last truth remains. Check Amanda's storage unit." I froze, the words sending a chill down my spine. A storage unit? Amanda hadn't mentioned anything about that. Was this another secret she had kept hidden? Or was it a trap? Despite my apprehension, I couldn't ignore the message. I texted Amanda, asking if she had a storage unit. Her response was immediate and suspiciously defensive. Why are you asking? That's private. My heart sank. She was hiding something. I decided not to push her further. Instead, I searched the address included in the text and made my way there the next morning. The storage facility was a nondescript building on the edge of town. I walked in, gave the receptionist Amanda's name, and was surprised when she handed me a key without question. Clearly, Amanda hadn't updated her records to remove me as an authorized user. I made my way to the unit, my hands trembling as I unlocked the door. The metal creaked as it rolled up, revealing a cluttered space filled with boxes, furniture, and random belongings. At first glance, it looked like nothing more than an overflow of household items. But as I dug deeper, I found something that made my blood run cold. In the corner of the unit was a locked box. It was heavy, the kind of box you'd use to store valuables or secrets. I pried it open with a crowbar I found nearby, and inside, I found documents, photos, and a small flash drive. The photos were of Amanda and Richard, taken over the years. Some were innocent, family gatherings, group outings, but others were intimate, damning. The documents included financial records showing payments from Richard to Amanda, payments she had never mentioned. But it was the flash drive that truly unraveled everything. When I plugged it into my laptop, I found a series of videos. The first few were surveillance footage of Amanda and Laura meeting with Richard, their conversations filled with references to the lies they were weaving. But the final video was the most shocking. It showed Amanda sitting at a table, speaking directly to the camera. "Richard," she said, her voice trembling, "this has to stop. I can't keep doing this. If James finds out, it'll destroy him. Please, let me come clean." The video cut off abruptly, but it was enough to confirm what I had suspected. Amanda had known the truth all along. She hadn't been manipulated as much as she wanted me to believe. She had made a choice to lie, to keep me in the dark. I sat there, staring at the screen, my chest tight with anger and betrayal. Amanda's secrets had poisoned everything, and now I had to decide what to do with the truth. I sat in my apartment, staring at the evidence I'd uncovered. The betrayal felt fresh all over again, as if the knife Amanda and Richard had plunged into my back was being twisted by my own hand. Amanda's face from the video haunted me, her trembling voice, her weak plea to stop the lies. She had made her choice, but now I had to make mine. This wasn't just about Amanda anymore. It was about Lily, about the years we had lost, and about finally putting an end to the tangled web of lies that had consumed our lives. I had to confront Amanda, not for revenge, but for the closure we all desperately needed. The next morning, I drove back to Amanda's house. My mind was a storm of emotions, but one thing was clear. I wasn't leaving without answers. When she opened the door, she looked surprised and terrified. "James," she said, her voice shaking, "what are you doing here?" I held up the flash drive. "We need to talk. Now." Her face paled, and she stepped aside to let me in. I followed her to the living room, where she sat on the edge of the couch, wringing her hands. I stayed standing, looming over her with the weight of everything I'd uncovered. "I found the storage unit," I said, my voice cold. "I know everything, Amanda. The payments from Richard, the meetings with Laura, the lies you told me even after he was gone. I saw the video." She looked up at me, her eyes wide with panic. "James, please, let me explain." "No," I snapped, cutting her off. "You don't get to explain. Not anymore. You've had years to tell me the truth, and you chose not to. So now, you're going to listen." Her lips quivered, but she stayed silent. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "You lied to me about Lily's paternity. You let Richard manipulate you, and you let Laura get involved. And even after Richard died, you kept lying. Why, Amanda? Why couldn't you just tell me the truth?" Tears streamed down her face, and she shook her head. "I was scared," she said, her voice trembling. "I didn't know how to face you. I thought if I kept it buried, we could move on." Move on? I laughed bitterly. How were we supposed to move on when the foundation of our lives was built on lies? I didn't want to lose you, she whispered. Or Lily. I thought if I told you, you'd leave and we'd lose everything. You already lost me, I said quietly. The moment you chose lies over the truth, you lost me. Her sobs filled the room, but I didn't feel any satisfaction in her pain. I wasn't here to punish her. I was here to end the cycle of lies. I'm going to the police, I said, my voice firm. Laura needs to be held accountable for what she did, and so do you. Amanda's head snapped up, her eyes wide with fear. James, no. Please don't do this. Think about Lily. She's already been through so much. This isn't about Lily, I said. This is about the truth. She deserves to know that the people who hurt her will face justice. And so do I. Amanda collapsed into sobs, but I didn't waver. I had made my decision, and nothing was going to change my mind. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal battles and emotional turmoil. Laura was arrested after I turned over the evidence, and the recordings and documents painted a damning picture. Amanda wasn't charged, but her involvement in the lies came under scrutiny. Through it all, Lily was my anchor. She was devastated by the revelations, but she refused to let them define her. We spent hours talking, rebuilding the trust that had been shattered. I told her everything about my pain, my mistakes, and my determination to make things right. She listened, and for the first time, I felt like we were truly connecting. Amanda tried to reach out, but I kept my distance. I wasn't ready to forgive her, and I wasn't sure I ever would be. But I didn't want to punish her either. She was Lily's mother, and no matter what had happened, Lily needed her. In the end, the truth didn't fix everything. It didn't erase the pain or bring back the years we had lost. But it gave us a chance to start over, to build something new from the ashes of what had been destroyed. One evening, as Lily and I sat on the porch of my apartment, she turned to me with a small smile. I'm glad you came back, she said. Even if it's been hard, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad too, I said, my voice thick with emotion. You're the best thing that ever happened to me, Lily, and I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you know that. She leaned her head on my shoulder, and for the first time in years, I felt a sense of peace. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but we were facing it together, and that was enough. Epilogue months later, as life began to settle, I received one final message from the unknown number. You found the truth. Now live it. I stared at the screen for a long time before deleting the message. Whoever had been guiding me, they had done their part. The rest was up to me. This wasn't the life I had planned, but it was the one I had now. And for the first time, I felt ready to embrace it. Not as the man I used to be, but as the father Lily deserved, and the person I was finally becoming.